I said it before and I'll say it again.
That scene, that last scene.
What does it mean?
I'm the dude, you know?
Get the fuck out of here. No, I cannot. That final scene starts now.
Hi everyone, we're back with the That Final Scene podcast. My name is Sophie and I'll be your host for the next hour or so. And I'm glad to confirm we have the full crew back, Ben and Simon.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Simon, you're going to tell us all about your Glastonbury adventures. But first, I want to introduce our very special guest that we're honored to have with us today in person. Actor, director, producer, and founder of the South London Film Festival, Kyriakos Georgiou. I'm going to say that in Greek, but please introduce yourself properly.
So Kyriakos Georgiou for the Greek listeners, but Kyri for short for those who get mixed up with the letters.
It's nice to have you, dude.
Thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. We're excited to dive into all things film festivals and indie filmmaking with you today. On this episode, we're going to talk about The Long Goodbye, Riz Ahmed's short film that won the Oscar last year, and more specifically, break down its final scene. This is a short that premiered to your festival last year, so really keen to get your insights on that. But first of all, let's start with what we usually do on this episode, which is what have you guys been watching these past few days? Simon, I feel like you have been watching a bunch of drunk Brits throwing up in muddy tents over the past few weeks. But
That's true. I'm conscious that I don't want to be like a Glastonbury wanker and
please go on.
wank on about it. But it was good. Saw lots of good bands, lots of campfire action.
What does that mean?
Campfires. You know,
Okay.
when you sit around a fire.
All right,
and you
okay.
just have a nice chat.
No, just knowing you, I thought it could be something different.
For Sophie, I tried to enjoy Kendrick Lamar, but I just couldn't get connected to the music. Like, it didn't do anything for me.
To be fair, I saw him live 6 years ago at Reading,
Yeah.
like 2015, I can't count.
7
years ago. And I thought he was really good back then. I don't know what has happened to him since.
I thought he was good. I thought of the headliners. I thought he was
cool.
the best one. I watched them on the Beeb over the weekend, and I thought he was of the three. He was probably the one I was most impressed by. Just because once you've seen McCartney live, you've seen that set like a million times. He doesn't change it. He does the same thing every time.
Same with Billie Eilish as
Yeah,
well.
and Billie Eilish's one, I was a little bit like, I was talking to somebody about it today, and actually I kind of agree with what they were saying, that it kind of feels like she's a little bit burnt out. Like she's been touring, she's been like releasing albums and touring nonstop for like the last 6 or 7 years, and she's only she's like
12.
19 or something like that. So yeah, I was a little bit like underwhelmed, and she didn't do the Bond theme, which really pissed me off. I was literally waiting for the whole thing. I was like, we're gonna get to the end, and then she'll bring out Hans Zimmer, she'll bring out Johnny Marr, it'll be amazing. Then she didn't do it, and I was like, oh,
Thank God.
well, fuck off. Oh, how dare you? That Bond thing was fantastic.
I was actually working in a bar, so it was an extra hardcore Glastonbury because we had to work in the bar.
Oh, you did
and
the
then-
volunteering thing?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So you had to do an 8-hour shift, and then you could go out raving afterwards.
Wow.
So shout out to all the Park Bar C rotation crew. I've actually watched some films. I watched Rocky Horror Show,
Love it.
Love it.
and I watched Broken Flowers, Jim Jarmusch. I don't think I mentioned that last time, did I?
Bill Murray.
Yeah, Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Nice.
Ben?
So we can't talk about every episode about watching The Boys, but obviously
Yeah.
we watched Hero Gasm and it was really good. Yeah, it was fantastic. I went and bought The Batman and No Time to Die on DVD, so I watched both of those. One of those made me cry. Which one? I'm not going to tell you. And
You have to, you know that.
of course it was No Time to Die. I cried like a baby when I saw it in the cinema. I cried again. I read a really interesting article on the South London Film Festival website about films to see before you watch it. Completely agreed with every single one. I thought it was perfect. Die Another Day was on the list.
I'll tell Joe about that.
Please tell Joe, he was
Just to be
right.
clear, nothing touches License to Kill.
License to Kill, I think, was on the list as well. So
That's
don't
like
worry.
the mega drug lord 80s one.
Yeah, with
Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, with Timothy Dalton. Yeah,
it's
fantastic.
incredible.
And then I've watched some Riz Ahmed stuff. So I didn't watch all of Four Lions. I watched a bit of it.
The Long Goodbye was a bit long.
Yeah. So yeah, and
It's
of
a long
course,
10 minutes.
watch Rogue One. You know, I had to watch his big Star Wars debut.
I feel like it's the best Star Wars film from the new ones.
Yeah, oh, definitely. It's the one that you could just watch it on its own. You don't need to have seen
Yes.
any of the rest
Could
of
I
Star
watch
Wars.
it?
Yeah, you could watch it. And you'd probably enjoy. You might enjoy it. Just because you don't like all that fantastical stuff. But yeah. So yeah, watched quite a lot in this last week. And trying to find Dogma on DVD, which I will find eventually.
Is
About
that the
later.
film with Alanis Morissette in?
Yes, Alanis
Yeah,
Morissette's
yeah.
in it as God.
Kyri?
So yeah, I've been watching a lot of stuff actually. We've been preparing for a special event for the festival. So we've been looking at lots of stuff to do with LGBT. So lots of different types of films. But in my own time, it's funny you mentioned with Rogue One, because I'm a huge fan of that. I do think I grew up with a generation of the prequels.
Thank
so
you.
But what was
Thank
interesting
God
about
you're
that,
here.
when I saw Darth Vader when I was younger, I wasn't that afraid of him, because it just looked very, wasn't very to get my back in his head. But I understand when I saw Rogue One and I saw Darth Vader for like how he was, I was scared. I thought, wow, this is how they must have felt, back then when. And this is showing my age. I'm not as old as I look. But yeah,
He doesn't look old.
No.
But yeah, like I realized how terrifying he can be. Right.
The scene at the end of Rogue One
Brilliant.
in the hallway, which I feel like is like a Star Wars trope now of like
Yeah.
the hallway scene, is brilliant. It's and I agree. It's the first time watching it, kind of you go like, oh shit, I can understand why people were terrified of this because my uncle is of the originals generation. And I remember him talking about seeing a man dressed as Darth Vader in a supermarket as a child and being terrified.
When I was growing up, I used to be into like wrestling and all that stuff.
Oh
and
my God.
there was
You and I have so much in common. It's
it was
ridiculous.
like I grew up being terrified. I don't know if you know The Undertaker. Like I was this guy in like a black, and a black outfit and dark hair. He's meant to. What was he? He's like a guy from the dead, or I don't know.
Oh, there's a lot
Some
of
scary
background. Yeah, he was a biker, and then he was dead, and then he was brought back from the dead, and yeah, it's all very.
I was
weird.
terrified of this guy growing up.
Yeah.
And then when I become a teenager, I remember there was this girl I was talking to, and I said to her, "Don't you think he's scary?" She says, "No." And that's where I realized, okay, that's because you're involved in it. When you're involved in something, you realize, maybe if you step away. But in regards to stuff I've been watching, I mean, shout out to Paramount Plus. I've been watching the new South Park features. I don't know if you've seen them. Brilliant. Like it's a nice way to. There was the ones features about COVID, and it's the boys, but they're older, so they're grown men, and it's set in the future, and they make sure it's set in the future.
I do want to check out Paramount Plus because they've got the Halo series on there. I really want to watch that one.
Cool. Well, very quickly, I just want to call out a couple of things. So, The Umbrella Academy. Have you guys heard of it?
I haven't watched the latest season yet, though. I've heard it's.
Have you seen the first two?
Yeah, I watched the first two.
Right.
Yeah.
So The Umbrella Academy is like a Netflix. It's my kind of like dopamine show. It's not perfect, but you just go back to it because it makes you feel all fuzzy. It revolves around a dysfunctional family of adopted siblings that have superpowers, and they reunite to solve their father's death, like the mystery that's around that. So since season 1, things have changed, but I don't know, I just love every single character in that show. And Simon, season 3, out of nowhere.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
No, crystallized.
No, Lon's on the run, Simon.
Oh, okay.
No. Crystallized by the XX.
Oh,
drops
nice.
out of nowhere. And I'm like,
Love it.
I'm gonna lose my shit. Like it was such a good, like it was so well done. So, and then very quickly, I know we talked about this before starting recording, but I watched Elvis last week. Thumbs up.
Did
for
his
me.
hips make you go crazy, as all the adverts seem to make out? Because it's all just focused on his hips.
What I'm going to say is that I'm officially jumping on the Austin Butler Oscar buzz train. That's what I'm going to say. Well, I'm not a massive Baz Luhrmann fan, like Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, like The Great Gatsby. There are things that I like about these films, but also he's a very particular kind of filmmaker. And I know we're going to talk about filmmaking in a bit, but the film has received very mixed reviews because it has such a distinct identity. It has like crazy cuts and like insane transitions. Like you need to be in that kind of mindset because otherwise it can be perceived as very fast paced and you're like, oh shit, I need to catch my breath for a second. So it's very like you have to be tuned in. But there is something to be appreciated when it comes to like original filmmaking. Like, when you see something authentic and you're like, I'm seeing there's a vision here. So I can either like choose to begrudge my way through the film or sit back, relax, enjoy it for what it is, even though it's not my traditional cup of tea.
The one thing you can say about Luhrmann, I think, is that no matter what the film is, if you didn't know anything about the film and you put someone in it, you know it's him.
I heard that there was a 20-minute standing ovation. Or was I hearing
Yeah,
that?
In Cannes Film Festival,
It's,
yeah.
doesn't it has one of the longest like standing ovations I think Cannes has
How
had.
can you
mental,
clap for
like-
20 minutes?
You can't clap for 20 minutes. I feel like that's fake news, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's also true, but it's like...
It just takes 20 minutes for everybody to walk out as they're standing to try and get out. So that's what they count it
But
as,
your palms go numb. I mean, I feel like you can't. You're right. Like
Sophie has the last word on the applause.
I would do like a 20-minute standing ovation for Austin Butler's performance, which, as I said to you guys earlier, I feel like it's the best male performance that I've seen in a leading role this year so far. He doesn't just embody Elvis, like he is Elvis. Like in every single scene, it's like it's so hard to show like groundness and like humanity and emotion behind that kind of like crazy costume and makeup, but he somehow pulls that off like so beautifully. I was very moved even towards the end. He just chef's kiss. On the other hand, Tom Hanks, his worst performance to date.
Well, it's interesting because the Austin Butler's one, like when with any kind of biopic, it's a really hard line between impersonating the person and kind of inhabiting the person. And I haven't seen the film yet, but what I've heard about it is it says that Austin Butler inhabits Elvis and Tom Hanks is very much a kind of a weird kind of impersonation of Colonel Tom Parker.
It's a
and you kind of see the
caricature.
two differences there. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's almost like Butler can step into Elvis's shoes and you can kind of tell the authenticity in there. And then Tom Hanks, like an imitation, which is what acting is all about. You have imitation and then you have like literally embodiment, right?
Method.
Did he go for,
It's
I mean,
a
maybe
controversial
Austin,
thing, that isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
maybe he went for
Some
method.
people don't
I
even
know.
like calling it method.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, yeah.
there's,
Why? What's wrong with method?
I think people don't like to refer to it as method because the term method has gotten negative connotations in recent years from like the Jared Leto sending rats to his co-stars as the Joker kind of thing. Whereas other actors, people like Christian Bale, they don't really call it method because it's not. It is just like it's performance. And this idea of method is something that's gotten a bit of a bad rap recently. I don't know.
Yeah, there are a lot of polarizing opinions on that because you're right, like Jared, Christian Bale, and like Daniel Day-Lewis, they've taken method acting way too literally.
The guy from Succession has been the really big example because obviously there was the New York Times article about him last year in which they kind of painted him as like an obsessive when actually then everybody else has come out and said, no, he's not an obsessive. He's really committed to it. He doesn't treat people like crap. He doesn't treat people like Kendall treats people, but he just inhabits that. You know, he wears the clothes and he kind of has that attitude. It doesn't mean he's a dick to people. Like, I think the thing is people have used method acting to excuse kind of being a dick for a while.
I think there's also this misconception with it as well because, I mean, when I was studying acting, you know, a lot of it was about like Stanislavski and learning about, you know, all that sort of stuff. And I think, especially with the whole Heath Ledger thing, I think audiences who may not have the experience in that field of work are obsessed with this idea of Heath Ledger and what happened, and it just makes a good story, doesn't it? You know, like
right.
Jared Leto sending rats to his coat, you know. But how much of it do we know is actually, you know, once they take their clothes off and their outfit, you know, are they the same? Or it sounds like a good story, you know, but you know, was he the Joker at home? Who knows? You know.
You're right, and I think it's also the concept around acting is still like a profession. At the end of the day, like you don't have to be a dick to people, especially in a professional like workplace, in order to bring your art to the table. I'm vastly paraphrasing, but I remember this kind of quote from John Cassavetes where he said something along the lines of, yeah, you can do the whole method acting thing, or you can just show up and act. which is like, yeah, you can bring your 100% by like, you know, stepping into the character while like the camera is like rolling, and then you can just be yourself, or you can just do the whole like Jared Leto thing. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have strong opinions. Like, just don't be a dick. Like when you're working.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So Elvis has, you know, quite a large audience, obviously.
Yes.
And in terms of generations, there's like the older generation who really were obsessed with Elvis, and you know, probably I don't know if they still listen to his stuff, but we don't really hear Elvis in media these days. So the younger generations probably have no idea unless their parents or elders played it for them. You know, there's not many people that would know. What do you think that younger audiences, out of sort of the older generation and the younger audience, who do you think this film appeals more to?
Yeah, the demographic is very interesting. I think there are two big players here, like Austin Butler. I don't know much about him, but I know he dated Vanessa Hudgens for a while. So like he's like prime MTV star.
Is he not still dating Vanessa Hudgens?
I don't think I think
maybe
they
not.
broke up ages ago, but like he has that kind of like Gen Z crowd from dating her, and I think someone like her potentially. So I think that's how they were able to draw like a younger crowd through him in a way. And then you have Tom Hanks, which is like America's Sweetheart, which I feel like you see Tom Hanks and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna go see that film. But I don't know whether, Simon, you have a better insight in terms of like what is Elvis Presley's like legacy in that kind of younger generation, how he's perceived. The one thing that I did like, which is again, it's a Lorman thing, is that you have a lot of modern music in like, some people are gonna hate that, but I actually like that. I don't know, there was like a Doja Cat in that. Like, for me, it's interesting. It's like you don't expect that, and like in the world of like, I mean, we're recording this in 2022, where you have like 25 biopics coming out every single year. 90% of them are going to be nominated for an Oscar. Like, if you want to do another fucking biopic, you might as well do something interesting with it. And for me, Elvis brought that kind of like interesting angle. But yeah, like from a younger generation, I feel like Hanks and Butler are going to be the main draws rather than Lorman himself.
On the face of it, I just don't think it's very attractive to young people. I don't think it would be a big draw.
Yeah.
I think. In terms of cinema going public, you might know this, Sophie. What's the split of age ranges that tend to go to cinema nowadays? Well, you might know this, Kyri. Is it older? And is that why they're skewing these films to older?
It's a good question. It's really hard to tell because since the pandemic, it's skewed the statistics. But definitely, it is younger audiences are less in favour of cinema. You know, and I mean, and it's interesting what you were saying earlier about the Marvel sort of dominating the industry. I think there's more of an interest in independent film now because they've been dominating for so many years that people are tired of it. They've
been rinsed.
Yeah, you know, and then once you see, you know, all these huge movies and you see something like, say, you know, we'll talk about it later, longer, but when you see these independent shorts or features that have their own voice, people who like maybe spark an interest in film because, you know, they've experienced Marvel, they experienced these things, they realise, whoa, there's a bit more there.
What's this?
It's a movie.
No!
Oh, I liked it.
No!
Can I say something?
No!
I don't get it.
What don't you get about it?
Cool. So why don't we move on to our discussion with Kyri? So what's your story?
So I grew up in South London. It's something I've been, you know, always passionate about, you know, doing something creative. My dad was really, really into film. He loved movies. In fact, sometimes it was a bit inappropriate because, like, I remember when I was really young, he said to me, "You need to check this film out. The Sixth Sense is fantastic." And I know your listeners, I don't want to give spoilers, but I don't care anymore. It's so old. If you haven't seen it, you know, go.
It's the final scene.
This is
We
spoiler
spoil this
podcast.
podcast is
Go,
spoilers.
go.
I watched it, and you know the opening where he gets shot, right? And he's sitting on the bench. I said, "Dad, is he dead?" And he said, "Shh." And that's like I got it straight away. And then there was that scene with the mum in the kitchen. I wouldn't go upstairs on my own. I did someone in the bathroom with me when I go toilet. It was just, it ruined my, why did he show that to me? You know, I never understood why he did that. But there was another time where, again, living in South London, people do really naughty things. And I was with my mum one day. We were coming back from a family event. I don't know why, but someone shot, I don't know if it was a BB gun or, you know, the metal bullet, I don't know what they're called, shot my back of my mum's car window. And it, like, you know, glass shatters and it's all sort of stays together, but it was shattered.
Splinters,
and she was driving very, very slowly. And I was in the back scared. And the bang, it was so loud, you know. And
you were in it?
I was in the car, yeah. And it's South London, right? And then we got home and obviously my dad had come out and she said, "George, look what's happened. You know, someone's done this. Someone shot the car. I can't believe it." And he came and said, "You know what? I just watched Titanic. It's fucking brilliant." And I was like, he said, "You need to go watch it. You need to go watch it, Marie. It's fantastic." And I was thinking, like, look, the car, you know. But that's, you know, it's my childhood growing up. And I studied film. I was passionate about it. And then I was doing my A-levels and I was about 18 years old, and then my father passed away. So at this point they were separated, living in Cyprus. That's where my family are from. And I thought, what do I do? You know, where do, like, I was dealing with, you know, when the parents are not together, anyone that's lost a relative, it's hard. You know, you've got, not only you're battling with your emotions, you're battling with legal processes. You know, it's all about money. It's all about funeral, this and that, and solicitors and stuff. And that's all I was dealing with. And I thought, what can I do? I got kicked out of college because I didn't finish my studies. I was falling behind on deadlines. And I thought, what am I going to do? You know, so I went away for a bit. And I came back a new person. I just decided I'm going to go out there and try. And I was doing anything I could to get on set, whether it was background work, extra work, running and things like that. From there, I just made contacts. I went from one thing to another, to another, to another. And then I decided to go back to the school that I went to as a student. They were looking for a technician. And I learned on the job. I met the kids. And it was really weird because the age bracket was quite close together between my age and then the students. So I was 18, you know, when my father passed away. And I think I was about just almost 19, 20 when I started there. And the kids are still 18, 19, you know, so a lot of them recognized me. And I'm in this position where how do you know, teach these kids these things, right? So as the years went on, I was there for about 5 years and the age gap went and I become more of a sir than Kyri. And then, like things changed. And then I was made redundant from there. And I thought, okay, now's the chance. I'm going to go and be creative. And started writing and learning how to edit, taught myself editing, all that stuff. Got another job in a school, but this time a bit of a more senior position, more directly teaching the kids about the sort of filmmaking process, editing, photography. Saved all my money that I got from my full-time job, got myself a camera.
What camera did you get?
I got a Canon 5D. So at the time, that was like the big deal, you know, and that got a lens, which I still use today. The lens is fantastic. 70-200, the Canon L series, a fan. But yeah, no, go and get one. It's fantastic. But yeah, like I used that and I went out there, was doing events. And this is the thing that I say to a lot of people, when you see opportunities, grab them. And, you know, you got to realize, like, I went to Comic-Con. Stan Lee was there and there was a 3-hour queue to go and get into this event. I had no tickets and you have to pay as well to go and see him talk. And I thought, I want to be in there, you know, I want to. And I was with my partner, she was with me as well. And I said, hold on a minute. And there was this big security guard checking people's tickets. The queue went all around the back. And I just went to the front. I said, excuse me. And I had put my camera on my shoulders. I said, excuse me. And he just said, yeah, mind out the way. And he let me in. And he said, press over there. So I went over and I see this big section where they had like the BBC and all these like big companies.
Wow.
And I thought, you know what? I'm not going over there. I'm going to the stage. So I went right over to where the stage was. And then they said, right, they're closing doors. They're going to start the first talk. And I was like, oh my God. And it was already starting and Stanley had come on the stage and no one was going to come and grab me. So I just sat down on the floor right in front of the stage with my big camera. And I got some of the most amazing pictures of Stanley, got to meet him, talk to him. And these were some of the last ever pictures of him, you know, when he came to England or Europe. And yeah, I was really proud.
Wait, what about your partner? Was she just like shoved outside?
She was waiting outside, yeah. And I come back and say, oh my God, I met Stan Lee. So that's nice.
I watched Titanic.
Yeah. So yeah, it was great. And you know, from there, I used those pictures. I was like, right, you know, guys, look what I've taken. They put them on their website, you know, and whatever I could do. And then I got hired to go and do them. And I started getting more gigs and getting more photography work. Then it was like, oh, can you do a music video? Can you do this? Can you do weddings? Yes. Do you want to continue doing weddings? No, I hate them. They're horrible. Yeah, from there, I was working in another school. And at that point, I decided, I've had enough here. I'm going to get all my kit. I'm going to, you know, go and start making stuff. My friend who's a filmmaker and producer, he said to me, just do it, you know, just go. So I went, started lining up clients and boom, one thing after the other and made a short film in lockdown and made a festival.
I have so many questions about that. Okay, so first of all, from what I've read about you, it feels to me like this period was a massive like period of reflection for you because one, you released your short film, When Life Gives You Lemons, Take Them Because There Are None Left in Tesco, right? So
brilliant title.
Yeah.
Brilliant title. For our non-British listeners, Tesco is a massive supermarket chain here, so FYI. How did you find the motivation to shoot it, produce it, put it out? And secondly, which kind of related to the first question, is like, I'm sure you were in touch with a lot of new and established filmmakers at the time. So I would love for you to give us a bit of a breakdown, like an idea of the atmosphere at the time in terms of like how were filmmakers approaching like creativity. There was no new stimulations. There were no like new experiences, no social interactions. Can you walk us through that?
I was one of those people that, I don't know if you guys go through this, but do full-time stuff. So, you know, when you're in that position and like I was in my previous job, you just want bloody time. You just want time, you know. It was always drive. We spend our whole lives wanting time and then we die because, you know, we die. Yes. And then it's like, where was the time? You know, where did the time go? And when lockdown happened, we had time. And I used to beat myself up. Like I used to think, if I'm sitting there watching a film, I'm wasting time. I need to go and be creative. I need to make stuff. I need to do stuff. And that's what I was doing. All my partner was at work, family out, doing stuff. Like everyone I knew was busy. My friends are out. I can't meet up with them. And I thought, what am I supposed to do with this time? You know, I need to be creative. It got to a stage where lockdown happened and I can't be creative because like, I mean, I can't make money. I can't do much because everything's shut. I thought, wow, I have time. Life has paused. The world has stopped. And for the first few weeks, I was a bit, you know, what am I doing with this? And sitting in the sun, we did a few barbecues, just chilled out and, you know, did the typical Greek thing. You know, lots of Greek music. And
plate smashing.
I actually found out my neighbour was Greek. This is how bad. I mean, I don't know, British people, we're just like, we're not in tune with our neighbours. But it was actually funny. I was shooting my short. And for those who haven't seen it, like I'm playing this guy who's on his way to work, but he's dressed in his work outfit and I was having a barbecue in the garden and we were playing Greek music. Next thing you know, the neighbour knocked on the door and I opened the door in this like suit and it just, because we were filming the upper half, I was in suit and shorts because it was really hot as well. So I opened the door and she must have been thinking, what is he doing? But there was all these tripods and light stands and everything. And she was probably
just like OnlyFans.
Yeah, she must have thought, what the hell is going on? And I was thinking, who are you as well? Like seeing this, and she was talking to me in Greek and I was just so confused. And there's that bit of language barrier when someone's from Greece and you're from Cyprus and And I was like, oh, you're Greek. And she was telling me that she's Greek and she heard the music and she wanted to come and say hello. And I was like, oh, wow. We should have been socially distancing, but we didn't.
It was a work event.
It was a work. Yeah, it was.
She was part of the crew. Yeah, she was the sound operator on the boom.
Like the film really. I just thought to myself, what are people doing in this time? Like we're here. What is everyone doing? And I thought about those guys who go on the train every day, they commute to work every day. You know, how are they coping in this time? And it's one of those things where I imagined that they must be finding it hard to adapt. And then I thought, how many people are struggling during this time? And I thought, I need to do something creative. And I wrote this script, and then I really liked the script, and I was laughing my head off when I wrote it. And then I thought, I wonder if anyone else thinks it's funny. So I sent it to one friend, loved it, another friend loved it, and everyone was saying, gosh, you need to make this film. So I did. And yeah, it was doing really well at festivals. And I realized that when my film was being successful, it was getting selected this country there, that country there, and it was getting awards and things like that. And I thought, I need to like now give a voice to others, because there was some festivals, I'm not going to name them, but this is my experience as a filmmaker. There's millions of festivals out there. And I thought, what do I do? What do you submit to? How do you know what's legit? And then, you know, some of them, like, you know, you submit to them.
There are many scams out there.
Yes. Yeah. I can't say who.
Please don't name them. But like, there are a lot of scams. People need to be very careful.
Yeah, you have to be really careful. And I realized that no one knows, you know, and there's lots of like, you know, particular ones where you submit and then you've got to get your friends to vote. And I realized I want to have my own say, you know, I want to say what I think is good out there. Yeah, like I just set it up and people were just following it, and all of a sudden it was just blowing up, and people were like, you know, really proud to have something from South London. And I thought, wow, you know, this is amazing. And Rain Dance, within 3 months, when I started it, I said, one day we'll be like them. Within 3 months, we partnered with them. Wow. That's a big thanks to David Martinez, who's the producer, and Elliot Grove, founder of Rain Dance. They really looked after me, gave me some advice. I had a session with Elliot who gave me really good tips and advice. And I just saw,
Shout out.
Yeah, amazing.
Starting film festival must be difficult enough as it is. What was it like trying to start a film festival in the middle of the whole world just kind of going to shit for about 2 years?
It was probably the best time to do it.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because it sounds cool, because I was on the phone to Arnold Schwarzenegger's agent, because I just thought big. Everyone is off. Everyone's doing nothing. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is doing nothing right now. So let me try and see if he was my hero growing up. I watched, you know, all his films, and I thought, I want to get my heroes, right? And we managed to get an interview with Mo Gilligan, who's a comedian from South London. Arnold Schwarzenegger in particular was one that I really, really wanted to get, and we got really, really close. And then he had a problem with his heart and was off, and we even like tried to reach out to Robert Zemeckis, and he'll be back.
How long were you waiting to say that?
I was like, should I?
And then, and I thought, and there was this big debate, do I put my face on it? Because I'm a filmmaker. I wanted to sort of do my own thing and get seen. And I thought, if I'm involved with the festival, it might push me away from what I want to do, you know. And if I ever had my film, what's going to happen? So I made a rule. I said, I'm never, ever going to have any films that I've worked on or been in part of the festival. So it's fair. You know, we've got independent judges.
How many people are on the festival team now with you?
I can't think numbers, but it's a big team. You know, we're growing, and we've got a nice, diverse team as well, and that's important as well, because I think that the one thing that's interesting about art and film and anything is that it's a voice, right? You paint a picture, that's your voice, that's your art, and film is the same thing. People write about what they know, and when things happened, it was the Black Lives Matter movement. Films come in about that. It was pandemic. There was loads of movies about the pandemic. In fact, there was this thing that kept coming up. We had about 5 of them, and there was 3 that were literally exactly the same. And it was about this, you know, those hotlines where you call like dating or the video, like where they do something sexy for you in the video thing.
Some heavy breathing.
Yeah, like I don't know. I forgot what they're called. Those type of
sex lines.
Yeah, sex line. Yeah, like one of those things. And it was basically the guy would be calling one of those sex lines, and the woman's on there going, "Hey, baby," doing all this stuff. And really, he just wanted to chat because he was lonely. And it was a really nice idea. But then lots of people had the same.
You also have her.
Yeah, and then she was
she's
lonely.
coining it in,
right?
But yeah, and that's the thing. Like, she was lonely too, and he was lonely. And then in the end, they had a lovely conversation, and it was not about sex and stuff. And you know, and there's no charge. Oh, what a lovely ending.
Yeah. It's a different ending if she's like, and that'll be £150.
Yeah.
If you know anything about these sex lines, you just get charged the minute you call it. There's no. She doesn't send an invoice at the end. Who's going to pay that?
This is definitely
claim
not
that
a
on
gold babe
expenses.
section a couple of times.
These guys that ring in, they're so honest with their invoice paying. They always pay within a week. So if someone wants to get your attention and they're a filmmaker, what's the best way to frame it and get you to pay attention to it?
That's a good question. There's never a right or wrong length of a film to make. But sometimes some messages don't need to be 20 minutes long. You know, sometimes you can make a point in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even 2 to 3 minutes. We have a film that we're going to be screening soon, and I cannot say the name of it, but it is incredible and it is so powerful, and it's only 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes even. We have to decide, you know, when we're putting on our program, when we have a list of films, if every film was 20 minutes, so say you made a 20-minute film, you made a 20-minute film, that's 40 minutes of an audience's time.
I always think the masters of short emotional films are Pixar, because they can literally have you in tears within like 35 seconds and tell you a whole story within 3 minutes.
Well, we're going to talk about The Long Goodbye in a few minutes, but that is it's 12 minutes long and does a lot more emotionally and politically than films that are like 2 hours long could even possibly do. And it's a perfect testament to this. I won't talk about it too much, but it's a perfect testament to the right pacing and the right time. Yeah, it's a whirlwind 12 minutes that says so much more than, as I say, like, you know, you could have a 3-hour biopic of something that it makes a much clearer and a much more important statement than something like that could.
Okay, a couple of last quick questions. So the first one, I mean, from everything you've been saying, like, you sound like someone who's incredibly passionate about what they do. And from my understanding, you want to bring all kinds of stories like to the forefront, but from a South London lens. So I would love to hear from you, like, what are your plans this year in terms of making that happen? Like, what do you have going on?
So yeah, we are called the South London Film Festival, but we're international. So we have films from all over the country, all over the world, you know, and we have films from countries that I probably wouldn't even know how to pronounce. We had France. Voices from different parts of the world are so important. And my plan is I want to encourage South Londoners. I want to encourage more people to go out, do creative things, be inspired, and expose them to more international voice. And equally, get South London on the map, you know, like get our people out there. And, you know, it's just a matter of giving that voice. In regards to what's happening, we have some really exciting stuff happening this year. So we're part of London Borough of Culture, which is Lewisham. So they've won the London. I mean, I'm from Lewisham, so I'm really proud of that as well. So it's great. But yeah, we're involved in that, and we've got some cool things. We're going to have networking events. We're coming up to do a Pride event, which is happening in mid-July. So yeah, it's going to be really cool. We've got amazing films, and like you say, passion, you know, I am passionate about doing this. So sometimes we have films that come in that maybe don't reach the sort of annual festival that we can show, but we still want to show some, you know. So this is the opportunity to show some of the films, some of them that did win and some of them that haven't been seen before. Really amazing music video that come in, which we cannot wait to show everyone, about toxic masculinity. So it's really, really nice. We are in talks about a particular thing we might be doing for Black History Month. So some special films about Black filmmakers, told by Black filmmakers. We're working with universities and colleges. We're going in, doing talks, things like that, workshops. This amazing filmmaker that got in touch, Liam Rogers. He made this short film called London's Forgotten, and it's like a poetic short about knife crime. This is more about the victims and about the path they take, and it's a very poetic style short. So in a way, sort of experimental, but not. So yeah, we're going to be screening his film in October, I believe. Then we're going to be touring schools and hopefully, you know, talking about this, working with organisations to sort of raise awareness, bring works, and hopefully get this stuff in curriculums, because why not? Let's push for that, right?
Amazing. And we're going to have all of this info in our show notes as well. So you better send me all that stuff. We do have a lot of filmmakers from London listening, but we also have a lot of filmmakers outside of London who are. So in terms of how they can get involved with the festival, because I believe submissions are open, correct?
Yeah, submissions are open pretty much all year round. So when they end, we just open them again. Just check our social media. We'll say if they're closed, or the website we'll put it up, say it's closed or open. But back to Liam and his short film about knife crime. He reached out to us. He reached out to the festival and said, hey, I've got this idea about, I want to do this film. I've written it, got a team. We need money. We need to make this happen. Obviously, I wish I had the money to give to people. We don't. We're a non-profit. But what we can do, we have an audience. So we did a crowdfunding Q&A. We talked about his film, what his plans are. We're also friends with Greenlit. They're amazing for doing crowdfunding. They focus on film. So we got him in touch with them and set them up. But there was a particular person called Marie who was in there. She was just writing notes throughout the thing. And I was looking and I thought, it's really interesting. It's really passionate. And at the end, she had I think it was 2 pages of notes of what I was saying. And I thought, that's really good. It's really amazing. And at the end, I said to Liam, you need to keep people like that. People who are passionate, that are hungry, that really, really want to help. And that's the people that will go far in this world, in this industry.
Let's wrap this up with your personal project, because you teased it quite nicely. What is it all about?
So I am planning to make a TV series.
Oh.
Just to give an idea, as part of research, one of the things we're doing, we're watching lots of comedies. Peep Show, In Betweeners, Fresh Meat, Only Fools and Horses. These are some of our inspirations. This is the route we're going down.
Oh, that's so exciting.
It's cool.
Yeah. I'm so looking forward to the festival and all of the events that, you have coming up. Please invite us to every single one of them. Yeah. Thank you. Cool. Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back for our final scene.
Oh, look, a message from our sponsor.
G.I. Jane 2. Can't wait to see it.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Hey, yo, what's up? Y'all got a problem? Y'all want some of this?
Without much further ado,
Here we go again.
So, as mentioned earlier, The Long Goodbye is a short film that was produced and co-written by Riz Ahmed that won the Best Live Action Short Film Oscar last year. Behind Ahmed on stage was co-writer and director Aneil Karia, best known for directing Surge. If you feel like having an anxiety attack for an hour and a half, please watch this film. It's really good. It's really good. It's very well
sold it so well.
It's very well directed.
Did you say an anxiety attack?
Anxiety, yeah, it's like uncut gems. As in, it's good, but you need to be in that kind of mindset to enjoy it.
I loved Uncut Gems.
Yeah, I feel like Surge has that kind of tone, but it's very nihilistic in the same. I don't know. Anyway, 12 minutes long. The Long Goodbye is divided into 3 acts. Every single one of them is entirely different tonally, which I feel like it's one of my favorite things about the film, actually. So the first part sees a British South Asian family at home. Ahmed's character is at the heart of a busy household. We meet him having a dance-off with his younger brother, criticizing another sibling for not doing the washing up, and arguing with his dad over whether it's worth watching the news. Upstairs, we see a group of girls preparing for a wedding and, with the bride admitting that Tiffman is a work colleague. Again, everyday, mundane, boring life stuff. Now, while all of this is happening, suddenly we see a group of white nationalists, it's not just the police, right? Barging into their home, this is the middle section, terrorizing the family before dragging them onto the streets and attacking them. And finally, the very last section, which is what I would call the final scene, shifts tone dramatically again, turning into some kind of surreal musical horror in a way, where Riz's character performs the spoken word / poetry / rap song Where You're From his 2020 concept album The Long Goodbye, to end the film in a gut-wrenching punch. So now, before talking about the final scene, I feel like we need to address the urgency of that film. So Simon, I know you texted us the other day when you watched the film and you were like, this film is more relevant than ever. Why did you say that?
I was after something a bit gentle to watch, so I thought I'll put Sophie's short film on. And I was literally having heart palpitations for about an hour. But I just thought, in the context of the overturning of Roe versus Wade, the way populism is riding so high at the moment, just feels like this film is very of the moment, and it felt quite potentially real. That film doesn't feel that far off in terms of some of the stuff that's been happening. So that's why I found it so terrifying.
You might have more context behind this, Kyri, but so they shot that film in 2020, correct? I read a bunch of their interviews, and from my understanding is that Aneil and Riz didn't actually know each other, so they kind of got together in order to get, not that film made per se, but they wanted to get something out there. And when they got together, they realized they had so much in common in terms of what they felt at the time. And we live in a post-Brexit England, right, where you have rising intolerance and you have dehumanization of refugees in the Ukraine right now. So there's a lot of turmoil, and I felt from their interviews they kind of got together and they realized that was the therapy, that was the way of looking inwards and bringing their perspective and frustrations out from that film. So we can jump straight to the final scene, which I feel the reason it works is because the first half of the film has that kind of incredible naturalistic feel to it. It almost feels like you're watching a documentary, like you're just watching people just being people. Like,
well, it lures you into a false sense of security because obviously the setting is in a South Asian family, but it's something that everyone would recognize. And it lures you into that while you have these kind of undertones of what's going on. You see the stuff like, you know, when I watched it the second time, you see on the screen, the kids watching the news about the riots in the background. You see that.
That bit of comedy because you're not transparent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think that's why, because it lures you into the false sense of security, of comfort, of chaotic nature of family gatherings, to then something that, as Simon said, is the most kind of upsetting thing about it, is that it doesn't feel far off, you know, in the Britain we live in today. And it's something that I went and listened to the album as well. The album is unflinchingly honest and aggressive about what that feeling is like. And as someone who doesn't know that feeling, it's really difficult to make someone feel how you feel when you're from a completely different background, and to kind of immerse you in that. And The Long Goodbye does a great job as Aneil Karia, but then just his music in general, like the opening track of The Long Goodbye is called The Breakup. And it's the pretense of a breakup with a girl called Brittany, and it develops into, it's a breakup between his culture and Britain. And it's like, not to get like all sweary, but it's fucking incredible. Like, it's fucking brilliant. And the film does that. His monologue at the end, what I don't really know what to call it, like a monologue or kind of his rap, or like it's poetry. It's unflinchingly honest about the fact that what happens in the film is something that, unfortunately, it feels like we're not that far off. Like you have films in the past like V for Vendetta in 1984 where you talk about people being dragged away in the night. Well, unfortunately, stuff like Brexit has meant that there is an atmosphere around the country of, if things got a little bit more extreme, something like that could happen.
I saw this film very, very early, before, you know, this had come to Oscars and everything. It's done amazing stuff. I saw this film as a credit to Aneil. Aneil actually had 2 winning films in our festival that year. Oh, wow. He had Teardrops, which was the Kano music. Yeah. Incredible.
Such a good story.
Yeah, he's an incredible director. Like, Aneil is someone I'd love to work with one day. He's a really, really, really talented person. I want to say this, you know, and I think it's really, really important that when I saw that film, I instantly broke down because I thought, whoa, I don't feel safe. When Brexit happened, I was scared. I honestly was scared to play my Greek music going out, because I thought, especially when it was the heat of, you know, get it done, you know, and I thought, if I'm now going around playing my music, they're going to think, get out this country, don't play this in. And for the first time in my life, I felt I don't have a place. And I get it. I get how Riz is feeling. I get how loads of people are feeling. And this is in one of the most diverse places in the country. We're in South London. And, you know, I mean, obviously I don't know where Riz is, but, you know,
Wembley.
Oh,
yeah, no, I mean, like in London, yeah. But when I grew up and I looked at people like Riz, and this is why, again, like I said before, why we have a South London Film Festival, I grew up and I see people like Riz. And when I saw that film for the first time, because I then went through this identity thing where I was ashamed of being British. I was ashamed of seeing that flag. You know, every time I saw it, I used to feel that associates with right wing. You know, that's not who I am. I don't want to be part of that. I don't agree with making people feel little. But then Riz Ahmed, and when I saw this film, and I'm not just exaggerating, I really, when I saw it for the first time, I felt proud of being British.
As a film in general, like, there's very few films that I would class as something that's important and that a lot of people should see. And I watched that, and one of my thoughts on it is it needs to be shown in schools in this country and around the world, because it's a really important film to show that this is a reality, and that, or it could be a reality. But you know, it's a reality for people like Riz and families like that, how they feel, and that fear is a real thing.
I felt the same way after I watched Book of Mormon, actually. and in a similar way, it gave me faith in humanity again, that material like that can be made and published and get popular.
For me, this is why the ending works, because the first half is the kind of representation we are lacking right now. Whether you have a big or you have like you're a lone child, like regardless of your background, like the fact that you're seeing just like a British South Asian family just doing fuck all. Honestly, that's what they're doing for the first time. Yeah, that's it. Like, this isn't like on BBC right now. This isn't like they're using like characters from this community to just tell very specific stories. And like, for me, the ending wouldn't be so impactful if it weren't for the first half. So like the ending where we have we change tone, and you have like Riz's character is getting shot. He starts rapping from the ground, and you instantly move to like this heightened, fictional, almost dystopian place where it's like, what is, like, you're just having an moment realization. And I think from a storytelling point of view, like from a filmmaking point of view, like, this is surreal. Like, obviously he's dead. You just enter like different level of filmmaking right now. But to go back to your point, Kyri, like, even for me, like, even though for many people that seems dystopian, that seems unrealistic, for immigrants, for refugees, this isn't a dystopian scenario. Like, this isn't a very real, like, nightmare scenario. Like, I know, like, to kind of relate on the Brexit stuff, like, I moved to London 2 weeks before Brexit happened. And when I learned the news, I was like, interesting. So how does this change my worldview? And I remember, obviously, like, Simon, like, you were one of the first people that I got to meet, like, when I moved here. And I just remember, because I knew like Brexit was this kind of like imminent cloud on top of me. I remember feeling very wary about getting comfortable, making friends, settling down, buying my own place. Like, it took me like a decent amount of years to create that sense of security around, to be like, okay, this may just be it. But like, I remember having nightmares of like getting booted off my flat. Like, one day you're in, one day you're out, because laws. Like, let's see what happened with the abortion. Like, you know, like, one day you're allowed to do something and the next day you're not. So like, we're taking all of these things for granted. And like, I feel like this is the kind of message that the rap / poetry ultimately does to you from a filmmaking perspective.
Even when you were describing it, I started feeling really upset thinking about it.
Yes.
Because I remember it's the horror. That is horror.
You feel every word.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but the bit that really got me was when the policeman gave them the thumbs up.
Yeah.
That I found that.
Yeah.
And then the second bit was when he was shouting for help to the people in the window in the next house along, and they just were looking.
Stand there.
And it really reminded me of This Is England. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the scene where the boy gets beaten up. No one's allowed to do anything about it. And they let this kid get terribly, probably beaten to death. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was a similar feeling that I got from that.
Yeah.
One of the interviews that I saw from Riz on the film, because you mentioned This Is England, he said, "This is England too."
Yeah.
I mean, that's the meaning behind The Long Goodbye. Like, this is England too.
What made that film so strong and why we care so much about it is because those characters were real. They were real people. It's funny because I was terrified in Terminator growing up, because the second one in particular, you can't kill it. You know, this thing is like, whatever you do, it's just like there. You think that when something you cannot fix, something you cannot stop, it's this terror.
And that extends to viewpoints. When somebody can't be reasoned with, that's my worst nightmare. When you can't even have a discussion about something, that's the worst.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, and again, and I mean, look, I've said my views on Brexit, how I feel about it. Is a very controversial thing. There are some people, and I even know, and my friend said to me, I was very vocal during this whole thing, and my friend said to me, stop preaching to the people that you already know.
On the night of Brexit, I went to get a curry from a local curry place in Turnpike Lane, and it's owned by like an old Indian couple, and I was like, have you guys voted in the referendum? And they were like, yeah, out. And I was like, why? And they were like, well, there's too many of us now, it's overrun. And I was like, so this Brexit question, it's just never ending. Everyone's got a different angle on it.
And that doesn't necessarily lead to racism and ultra-right views. And there's a lot of people that I've realised that, you know, the moment we sort of outcast anybody that thinks differently to us, then we have a problem, because we become just like them. You know?
Exactly.
I think it's very important that the song the film ends with is called Where You're From.
Yeah.
And it goes back to your point, because it's a question that like most definitely you and I have heard a million times. Like and it goes back to his exact lyrics in that song where he's like, where you from? No. Where you really from? Which is like, it's a question that you've heard a million times, which, if I'm honest, I have no problem answering. Like, if you ask me where you're from, I have no problem telling you. But it's the tone of the delivery sometimes that you know what it implies.
One of the lyrics is, you know, you ask me where I'm from, well, I don't know, you're going to have to give me a map. And it's this thing, as you say, it's the you're not asking me where I'm from because you know the answer you want me to give you. You're not asking me if I'm from Brixton, or I'm not asking if I'm from Lewisham, I'm from Tottenham. You're asking me where do I look like I'm from, not where are you from.
And it's where you want to go with that question. Where you want to go is, let's establish a territory here.
Oh, yeah.
Let's make it very clear that you are from somewhere else.
You know, when I bring back to what I said about feeling British and Riz Ahmed, and I'm curious to know what his identity is and how he sees, because the reason I'm curious to know that is because it's a funny story. I was in New York. We went with my partner who was coming on a train, and this lady come up and she heard us talking. And as Brits do, we don't know what's going on. We're like, you know, well, when's the next train? What's happening? She said, oh, you guys from London? It's like, forgive me for the horrific accent. And I said, yeah. She goes, wow, you know, Brits, what are you doing? How are you finding America? And I said, it's great. What did you think of New York? I said, yeah, it's great. Did you visit the Freedom Tower? I said, yeah, it was like really touching. And then she said, you know what I hate about Brits? And I was like, okay. And she said, what you guys did to India, it was disgusting. And I thought, yeah, she has a point, you know. And I was like, yeah, you know, they haven't got fans in many places. And she says, but then why do you live there? Well, what do you mean, why do I live there? What? And then she said, well, you know, why are you living there? They're horrible. And she started talking, and I thought, well, you know, there is a lot of bad history. And then I started feeling very sort of like, stop insulting my people. Okay, it's like weird because, you know, Brits have done British history is horrible, you know.
Where are you going to go and live that's pure? I mean,
at the time, Donald Trump was the president of the US, and I was thinking, like, what are you talking about? Have you seen your president, mate? Yeah. And and I mean, I hate, that's one thing I hate about the British history is the fact, and I hate that we don't teach enough people about it. And then she just said it, she said, we're blue-blooded Americans and we don't need no queen. Tell her to kiss my ass. And she got off the train. And I like, this lady said to me, we're not all like that.
I would like to wrap up this discussion with one final question in terms of the intention behind using music to end the film, because I feel like there's a reason behind that. And obviously, like, I mean, as you mentioned, Ben, like, Riz has an intricate relationship with music. Like, he's doubled as an MC for years. I am not very familiar with his music, but to me, and like maybe Simon, I would love your thoughts here. Like, music sometimes is like the medium that is the most cathartic in a way, because you can like breathe into a message without having to mull over it in a way. It's just like, so it's more instinctual than film even sometimes.
It's a bit of an equalizer.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, like, to go back to that, where you're from, like, what Riz must have helped, you know, in that moment, like the confusion, the frustration, and the resentment towards like that kind of duality behind like his identity is perhaps the best way that could have communicated that message. But yeah, I would love to hear everyone's take on like, why is music the medium to make that message most effective?
My only comment about that film that I would have, the only thing I would have changed is that I wouldn't have brought the music in so early, because I felt like I would have
kept it. What do you mean early? Because it's in the end.
But the music comes in before the rap begins, doesn't it?
Oh, you mean technically?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
And I would have kept the action like documentary style reality soundscape.
It's really interesting. Are you talking about when the action started?
Yeah.
You know what? It's really interesting. Right. Now, one of our judges said to us in the comments, the music was the abrupt introduction to the music distracted him. I felt that, like, I disagreed with him, you know, and I felt that my opinion on that was, I mean, he was the only one that said it, and I get it. I get why. But then I also get why they chose to do that, because I think that, and that was a bit genius in the way, because it was like this obscenity of what's happening. It's like, yeah, let's just fucking put music on it.
Almost made it more absurd.
Yeah, let's put the absurdity to it. Let's just make this really uncomfortable. I think that it works in a way that it makes you feel uncomfortable for the right reasons.
But to go back to your question, I think music just allows more emotion to be conveyed per second, if you like, because more emotion can be poured into the delivery of the lyrics, to the, like, say, the breathing of it, the energy of it. I think that's why it can be so powerful.
I think, and that kind of goes back to kind of what I said about Riz Ahmed's music in particular, in that he has a very, we've all seen Shakespearean plays where it's like 5-minute long speeches and you're kind of like, okay, you know, you've lost me and now I don't know what's going on. He has an amazing way with words. He's clearly very like rhythmic, and he has a way of, if it had just been a regular speech, it could get lost, but because it has this
cadence
to it. Yeah, this rhythm, this, you know, emotion. Like he's able to deliver it in a really kind of stoic, beaten down way, but because of the way the beat goes, he's able to build it up, and he's able to build himself back up in that scenario. You know, as you say, the cadence and stuff like that, it just has that lasting impact more so than just some kind of monologue would.
In my head, in that scene, Riz is actually dead, and it's more like almost like his spirit singing. It's because he's being shot, he's lying on the road. It's like his
epitaph or something.
It's a surreal scene. So I think that's why the rap works particularly well.
And I do think the reason he kind of resurrects in a way, like the one thing that we need to take away from this film is that ultimately this is a story about defiance rather than defeat. Even though we have a heartbreaking story in front of us, like there is a lot to take away that is actually quite powerful.
A lot of his music is inspired by grime, and grime is a very, very British thing.
Yeah.
I think that where, say, he's doing that in that style, he's sort of also saying, this is who I am. This is me, which again made me really relate to it.
Were Aneil and Riz made aware that they were shortlisted in your festival for the film?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. I think Aneil was going to try and come down to the event last year. So they actually won in 2020. And the film, because we were in lockdown, we screened it. We did the online festival. But it was so important to me that film needs to be with a live audience. I don't care how many times people have seen it. It needs to be with a live audience. So I said, I don't care how much time we've got. We're going to show this at our next event. Even though it won last year, we're going to show it. And that's not going to be a regular thing. It's only because people didn't get to see it. And yeah, they were really supportive and grateful, you know.
Amazing. I think we solved the ending. Again, you guys.
I think so.
Kyri, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you?
South London Film Festival on Instagram, South London Film on Twitter, because you can't have bloody long words on there. So just South London Film Festival, put it in Google. We should be the top thing on there. Get in touch. You know, if you've got any questions, get in touch. We do Q&A sometimes online with filmmakers, aspiring artists and whatnot. And yeah, keep an eye out for like more things we're doing. We will be as much as we can getting out there, inspiring more creatives.
Really exciting. Okay, that was the show, people. And remember, stories are how we imagine ourselves in other people's lives, right? In a world where like certain stories are being pushed to the side, where certain people are othered, representation matters. So say yes to all kinds of stories, of all kinds of backgrounds, of all kinds of people. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Did you like it? Did you like that?
Did I like it? I loved it.
I had no idea you could milk a cat.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.